Congresswoman and member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, Debbie Dingle. Congresswoman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Do you agree with the senator?
I agree with the senator that I'm pretty mad at Saudi Arabia, and I'm very concerned that they are directly working with Putin and was stunned at what happened last week. I also know that things in the Mideast are very volatile, and we've got to be deliberate, intense, and focused. But I'm not going to go as far as Senator Menendez.
What about China? I mean, we see that the CCP is also supporting Putin, and the Chinese wanted to buy a 14% stake in Rosneft several years ago, and now we're seeing the Chinese Communist Party back Putin consistently.
Well, I don't think I think they've drawn a line in the sand to some extent, but I'm extremely concerned about China as well. We know that they had a meeting, and what I worry about is the economic dependence of this country on China, period, which is why it's become so important that in this past year we've invested in bringing our supply chain back, not being dependent on that area of the country for chips and semiconductor chips. And we need to move very quickly to do that back. And actually, quite frankly, Maria, I'm hoping that that may be one of the things. It's going to take a few years to get those jobs back home that will help stabilize our economy. We already have right now, jobs are the one good place. We continue to see good news. But we need to bring those jobs back home and lessen our dependence on foreign countries in many places, on many critical supplies that we need in this country.
Well, most people are looking at this economy and recognizing that things are slowing quite a bit, and it will catch up with jobs. You're right. So far, we haven't really seen that in the jobs market. We're still creating jobs, but you've got Jamie Dimon saying we're going to be looking at a serious recession within 6 months. You've got Larry Summers continuing to talk about the dangers of all of the spending and the stimulus out there. He says this is the last stop, this World Bank meeting, and then the economic storm is coming. Do you agree that we are in recession or will be within 6 months?
Well, I'm hoping that they're wrong. I think that the president is doing everything that he can to keep them happy. I do believe that we had to spend the money that we did when we did. This country was in a real crisis. The American recovery dollars helped stabilize and bring security to a lot of working men and women across this country and help support local municipalities. So I think that it was very needed at the time.
What, $5 trillion? $5 trillion or $9 trillion? Kevin McCarthy says the Democrats have spent $9 trillion. When you go back to the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency and him signing into the law, the COVID relief package at $1.9 trillion, that added to it. So you're saying we needed $5 trillion or $9 trillion to actually...
But go look at what the money was spent on. Okay, we needed that 1.9 because we were spending that money on vaccines. And I'm tired of people saying
it wasn't on vaccines. You're talking about $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. Your colleagues on the right are saying that that money was misallocated. Right. Then you've got infrastructure. Then you've got a $1 trillion student loan bailout. You've got tons of spending that had nothing to do with COVID. You know that, Congresswoman.
Well, I didn't know which bill you were referring to. The first bill was still going into some very definite COVID relief vaccine funds. The second bill, the American Recovery Plan, was putting money into schools, getting shots in arms, getting people food on their table, getting people back to work. You're talking about 40-year high inflation right now. It's cutting into profits. It's cutting into people's lives. They can't even go paycheck to paycheck. They're all feeling stressed. 75% of the country says we're going in the wrong direction. How are you going to roll this back and pull back 40-year high inflation now, which is a major problem for this economy? Well, first of all, I know it's major. And, you know, I go to the gas station and I go to the grocery store, too. And I live by myself and I feel, I mean, I'm lucky the most that I've got a job and secure every 2 years. We've got to do something. But I'm going to tell you that we had to invest in what we're doing. And by the way, I'm not going to apologize We're trying to fix our roads because our infrastructure is worse than a third world country.
Well, we haven't fixed the roads. That's the thing. The roads are not being fixed. The money is misallocated. And then there's a wide open border. The Drug Enforcement Agency says that a random colored fentanyl is being used to target children, telling parents to warn their kids ahead of Halloween. You know people who've died of fentanyl poisoning. What are you going to do about the fentanyl poisoning in this country? Now we have to worry about Halloween because of this wide open border. Have you spoken to Joe Biden about it?
I'm going to say three things. Yes, I've talked to the president about it because I am really worried.
What is his answer? What is his answer for the 100,000 people who have been poisoned by fentanyl? What is his answer for the 3 million people who are in this country on his watch illegally? What did he say to you?
Okay, Maria, can we go calmly? I didn't talk to him about immigration directly.
So you haven't spoken to him about the border?
Fentanyl and drugs have been around a long time. My father
fentanyl trafficking has accelerated substantially on Joe Biden's watch. We know this, and you know this.
It's happened for years and decades in this country, and we didn't talk about it.
That's not true.
And it happens every place.
That's not true. Under Joe Biden, fentanyl trafficking has accelerated substantially.
Don't tell me. It's an increased drug problem, but don't tell me that we have.
Why weren't we talking about fentanyl 2 years ago? Why weren't we talking about fentanyl 2 years ago? How many people do you know that have died of fentanyl poisoning?
I know too many people and members of my own family.
So do I.
So don't tell me I don't know about it. I've lived with the scourge of drugs, and I've lived with the taboo, and no one wanting to talk about it, and no one wanting to even admit it's true. I know firsthand what it's like to have drugs in a family and the damage it does.
What are you doing about the open border?
I fight in the Congress.
Congresswoman, I'm not making this personal to your family. What are you doing about the open border? 3 million people have come into this country on Joe Biden's watch. Fentanyl is being seized left and right. They're dropping fentanyl all over Texas through drones. What are you doing about it?
I'm meeting with the ATF today to discuss it, and I want to know exactly what they are doing because I am worried about it. So I have an 11 o'clock meeting with them, and if you want me to call and tell you how the discussion went after, I'm really glad to do it.
We would love that.
I have talked to people at the White House. These are tough issues. They're unfortunately not new. They've been in this country. We keep
Are you telling me that the fentanyl problem did not get worse on Joe Biden's watch? Is that what you're saying right now? Is that your statement?
I'm telling you.
Is your statement that the fentanyl problem did not get worse under Joe Biden?
My statement is fentanyl is a real problem in this country, but drugs have been a problem. We've had a war on drugs since Ronald Reagan.
Things have accelerated under Joe Biden because of the wide open border. Agreed?
We're all trying to work on the border.
No one's working on the border from the Democrat Party. I do not see anyone working on the open border from the Democrat Party. We've already had more buses coming into New York. You've had buses going into Chicago. You've got secret flights that Joe Biden is sending people all over the country, and nobody knows. Now we understand migrant children are going to be going to school in Staten Island. Nobody knows any of this. Mayors are not being notified. Why not?
Well, part of it's because Republican governors are shipping people there, and then people that remember that, we got to remember we got human responsibilities, too, to help people.
So you're blaming the Republicans on the open border. So is that your statement? You're blaming the Republicans on the open border, Congresswoman?
Can I say something to you? We need comprehensive immigration reform, and Republicans and Democrats have failed to do it for decades because it's such a tough issue. We've had the highest number of people that have ever come to the border because they're trying to escape horrific situations. They're coming to this country for hope.
What about Americans? What about Americans who are seeing their jobs go away? What about Americans who are seeing their health care coverage go away because they have to go, they need money for the migrants? How about the Americans? You're talking about these people coming from other countries. What about the impact on Americans? What about Michiganians?
Maria, I didn't come on to have a screaming match, and I need to make sure that every one of my constituents has access to health care. I think we need to make sure every American can go to the doctor when they want to go to the doctor and be able to afford their medicine. And by the way, the Republicans haven't really shown a lot of concern about helping people be able to afford their medicine. When you refuse to put a cap of insulin for private insurance plans at $35 a month, what's wrong with that?
Let's just reiterate. Under the Trump administration, the border was secured insecure, and apprehensions at the border were at a 40-year low. They are now at a 20-year high. Fentanyl was not trafficked as much as it is today. Because of the open border, we are seeing drugs poison American citizens. You know this, and I know this. Congressman, we appreciate how you always come into the middle and try to work with your colleagues on the other side. We would like to hear you do the same with Joe Biden. Will you please reach out to the president and ask him what his solution is to this wide open border and call us back? Because the Bidens won't answer us.
Will you do something for me?
Yes.
Will you work with me to get Republicans and Democrats to the table, because we can't solve it in a partisan way?
I'd love to.
We need to have comprehensive immigration reform that protects our national security and also fills a lot of jobs in this country that people desperately need them to fill.
Yep.
So let's work together to bring both sides together and get comprehensive immigration reform.
We agree on that. Congresswoman, it's always a pleasure to see you, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Debbie Dingle.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Debbie Dingle joining us this morning. Always takes on the tough issues